Hey, welcome back. Thanks for coming back to my channel. I appreciate you guys. And something that I want to talk about today is not Doug's, but what I want to talk about is how you can start buying back your time and get out of that 9-to-5 grind. You know, everybody talks about, oh, I want to start a side hustle. I need to find a way to fire my boss. But when you start to think about it, it's really daunting. You're trying to replace $60,000, $80,000, $150,000 a year income with one side business that you need to scale, you need to spend all this time on, and you really got to build to get to that level. And it's just so overwhelming that you might not be able to pull it off without a little bit of strategy. Let's talk today about how I was able to replace my previous income through a side gig and what I did to keep myself motivated and not feeling like I was failing every single day. So the way that it started is, back in 2012 when I started my first successful side business that actually grew into a real income, or something I would consider a real income, was I came into it with a mindset that I was going to start paying off one bill at a time through this business. So as opposed to saying, I want to get to, at the time I was bartending at a small city, and I was probably making maybe $3,000 a month, somewhere around there. And I was working anywhere between 30 and 40 hours a week. So for me to take the side business and realistically replace that income and come into it with some sort of time frame would have just absolutely killed me mentally. I don't think I would have been strong enough to keep moving forward if my goal was to get that business up to $3,000 a month in a really short amount of time. So what I did, especially because I have ADD, and some of you guys might be able to relate with this, I started building off of small wins. So my very first goal with that business, honestly, I was going to say my cell phone bill, but really my first goal and my first big win was when I made a little bit of money, and I used to go to Dunkin' Donuts every morning and buy an iced coffee, sometimes a breakfast sandwich, but it was more about walking the dog down to get a coffee. And I was actually able to start paying for my morning coffee through my business. That's not a huge win, but I'll tell you, I can remember very clearly the first time that I bought that coffee. Yo, hey. No squeak toys during the video. You do this squeak every time I start a video. Like I said, that very first big win that I got through my business was actually going to Dunkin' Donuts and being able to buy my coffee. And I thought that that was really cool. You might look at me and say, oh, that's such a small goal. Like, who the frick cares about that? But honestly, that was huge for me. So after I had that win, after I said, all right, I'm actually making some money off of this, profits, and I'm able to buy something for myself, I said, instead of taking this money and just blowing it and buying rounds of golf and toys and, whatever, I said, why don't I come at this with a plan? And this is, me in my head, so I'm obviously not saying it out loud, but what I did was I said, my first goal is to be able to start paying my cell phone bill every month with my side business. And it took me really kind of in the first month, I was able to achieve that goal. And you know why? Is because it was like $100 a month. I was able to get there fairly quickly. And that was pretty awesome. It gave me that huge win. It gave me that momentum in my business and the ability to keep moving forward. So what I started doing is the very first thing I did was I picked all of my smallest bills and I started clearing them one at a time through the side business. So it was my cell phone bill, it was my car insurance, then it was my car payment. And I started knocking off these bills one at a time until all of a sudden, the only thing that I was bartending for was to pay my rent. And I'll tell you, once I only had to make my rent every month, which I think was around $1,000 at the time, it took a lot of pressure off the bartending. So being in a field like bartending, a career like bartending, I was able to actually start cutting down some of my shifts and putting more focus towards my business. Now, if you're in a traditional 9-to-5 sort of environment, you're probably not going to be able to tell your boss, I'm going to start taking Fridays off. That's not going to happen. So you're going to have to keep going until you have all these bills paid off. the beauty of it is that as you start paying these bills off, that money that you're making through your 9-to-5 job is actually going to be more money that you can save towards your future. So that's where you want to start building a nest egg. That's when you want to start putting away and have a goal of, say, maybe 6 months or even 3 months at a minimum, but 6 months would be ideal, of having all of your bills paid. Like, say your income dried up and there was nothing else, and you would be able to survive for 6 months. So that's all your bills, your food, and your lodging, whatever your rent or your mortgage is. And if you're paying all your bills with your side business, you can start building that pretty quickly when you're not needing to spend any of your 9-to-5 job that's coming in, which is really awesome. So the point of this video is that, a lot of people get overwhelmed when they're thinking about trying to quit their job through starting a side business. And I completely understand that, because I was in that same place at one point. It's really about the small wins. And especially if you're somebody like me who has ADD, ADHD. I mean, if you look at me, I can't even film this video right now without playing with my dog at the same time. If you're somebody like me and you have the ADD and you get distracted very quickly, the best thing that you can do is to break it down into micro wins. And some of those micro wins might even be as small as being able to buy your morning coffee, and then starting to make them a little bit bigger, like your cell phone bill, like your car insurance, your car payment, and other expenses that you might have that you can start knocking off one at a time. And as you start to build that momentum, it's going to give you a lot more confidence. And as you gain more confidence, you're going to start to earn more money. The money's going to come more easily to you. And as the money comes more easily to you, now you're able to start putting away more money faster. And before you know it, soon you're going to be thinking about, okay, now what's the date that I can actually realistically quit my job? If you have to put away, say your bills are $3,000 a month, we'll just use that as an example. Say you need 3 months of your bills to be able to confidently quit your job, that's $9,000. If it's 6 months of your bills, now you have to put away $18,000. And that might sound like a lot, but what if you're earning $5,000 a month take home, after taxes from your job, and you're able to use all of your side income to pay your bills and to pay for your food and for all of this stuff, then $18,000 is really only 4 months worth of paychecks. And after 4 months, now you have 6 months worth of a safety net that you're able to look at your future, and what your side business has been able to produce, and say, all right, am I going to be able to keep this going? First of all, is it really fluctuating a lot month to month, or is it really consistent? And then secondly, is there going to be room to scale? Are you going to be able to grow this past where you're at as a one-person business, or maybe hiring on a virtual assistant of some sort to help manage a little bit of the workload so you can grow a little bit faster? So I just want to let you know that it's possible. People like me and a lot of other people in the world have done exactly this. And if you're somebody who's in a position right now that you just hate your 9-to-5, you want to start buying back your freedom, and that's the way I looked at it, is this was buying back my freedom, one bill at a time, that it's only a matter of time, if you can continue being consistent and continue working this business, that eventually you will now be able to fire your boss and actually be in true control of your life and make your own schedule and do stuff that you want to do when you want to do it, and not be answering to somebody else on when you're allowed to take vacations and when you're allowed to be sick or anything like that. So, hopefully this broke down to a much smaller kind of bite-size mindset for you, or idea path. And I just want to say, if you're somebody who's like me and you love brainstorming and you like batting around ideas, then I have a Skool community that I've created that is completely free right now. And I'm going to start doing, as of next Wednesday, stop hitting the tripod. I'm going to start doing weekly Zooms where we can actually get together and converse. So it might be on Zoom, it might be on another platform. I'll have the details before next Wednesday. But next Wednesday is going to be the first one. And I'm excited to meet some of you guys there. There's a few people in the group. While it's small, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be able to mess around. We're going to be able to bat some ideas around. And the more people you put into a situation like this, or a mastermind sort of situation, the better results we're all going to get, because the better ideas are going to come from the volume of ideas and more people thinking about it that have a business mindset. So the description and the comments down below will have a link if you want to join that. And I'll be over there waiting to meet you guys. And don't forget, if this is the type of content that you love and you're thinking about starting a side business because you want to fire your boss, then make sure you subscribe, because we'll be happy to have you right here, where we're helping other people do the exact same thing. Until then, I will see you guys on the next video.